The DNC, the Democratic National Convention. This year was the first year that I've ever been to a convention before, and I've been a Democrat for as long as I've been registered. It's like the way that I've been socially conditioned. And I'm a politico. I've been a political activist, a political campaign staffer, the entirety of my career. I studied political science in undergrad at Howard University. So for this to be my very first Democratic National Convention, it was kind of a big deal, especially for this historic election of Kamala Harris, a woman of color, for the first time ever in history, accepting the nomination of a major political party for the presidency. It was historic. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Convos with Corinne. I'm your host, Corinne G. Freeman, and today we're going to reflect on what was truly a historic Democratic National Convention this year. This convention wasn't just another political gathering. It was really a moment of profound significance culturally, especially for those of us on the progressive left who have long been pushing for deeper, more meaningful, and inclusive candidates and representation within our party. For the first time in history, the DNC was directed by a Black woman, a powerful milestone that we should all celebrate. This moment represents a breakthrough for representation at the highest levels of political organizing, especially in the party that has long relied on the support and leadership of Black women. But beyond this symbolic victory, this convention was a complex mix of progress and strategic compromises that raise important questions for the future of the Democratic Party. And let's not overlook the historic nature of this election itself. Kamala Harris, as the first mixed-race and Black woman to achieve the nomination of a major party ticket, carries in itself a deep symbolism and representation that resonates with millions of Americans, particularly women of color like myself. Her nomination isn't just about breaking a glass ceiling, it's about shattering it into a million pieces. It signals to women across the country, especially Black women and women of color, that our voices, our experiences, and our leadership are not only valid, but necessary, particularly in this moment. Harris's nomination is a powerful statement that half of America's population can see themselves represented at the highest levels of government. I want to take a moment to move beyond the symbolism of Vice President Harris accepting the nomination to really talk about her speech. I remember being at the DNC, anticipating on the night that she was speaking to cry. If you know me, I am a Howard University graduate, political science major, and very tapped in and tuned into politics, right? And I expected very much that night to cry, to see so much of myself, all of my friends, in that moment as she accepted the nomination. But when I heard Vice President Harris's speech, I was profoundly disappointed because of the tone and tenor that she took. Just because in her identity as a woman of color, it is being received as a radical act in and of itself. For her nomination for presidency, she has taken a much more middle of the road approach, safer approach, less progressive approach in her policies. And I think that she is strategically being advised to do so, to lean deeper into the middle so that she's not characterized as some radical leftist who wants to tear America apart. But I remember sitting there watching her speak, surrounded by many other Democratic supporters. I remember watching their faces beaming with pride. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, she sounds like every other white man that has come before her in this party. She sounds so moderate. She sounds so middle of the road. She sounds so pro-America-Israel and the relationship that we have together. And she sounded so pro-business, economy, middle class first. And for me, honestly, that felt really disappointing. And it's disappointing because the poor have been completely abandoned by both parties, right? So many of the issues that we care about have been abandoned also by the Democratic Party, like pushing to get rid of the death penalty as an option, capital punishment. There's no talk about that. There's no mention of the poor. And really talking about housing and housing affordability and the impact that that has on American citizens. Like, she didn't really touch on those things. But she sounded like she definitely capitalized on talking about, jobs, the economy, protecting the middle class, ensuring that the U.S. doesn't fall to China, and really emphasize the protection of the relationship between America and Israel, and America really serving as Israel's greatest ally abroad. And I think that Vice President Harris did not do herself any favors that day. I think that in trying to reach for the middle, she is abandoning the 1 million plus uncommitted voters that sit squarely in her base that are asking her for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and an arms embargo for Israel for as long as they are committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. Those are the two things that they're asking for. With 1 million plus votes who said, we can't support you unless you do this. She is at risk of not gaining those votes and losing the election to try to reach deeper into the middle. And I find that disappointing. Those are more of my thoughts. One of the most glaring examples of this was the decision not to allow a Palestinian speaker at the convention. For many of us on the progressive left, this decision was not just disappointing, it was a betrayal of the values we hold dear. The exclusion of Palestinian voices, particularly at a time when the world is watching the ongoing crisis in Gaza, a genocide, sends a clear message that the Democratic Party is unwilling to fully confront the human rights abuses that are happening under their watch. This decision couldn't have more serious implications for the party's prospects in November. We know there are over 1 million uncommitted voters who have made it clear that their vote will hinge on the issue of Gaza and Palestine. By ignoring our concerns, the party risks alienating a critical block of voters who are committed to justice and human rights, potentially undermining the very coalition that the Harris-Walz campaign needs to win this November. So, what's the path forward? My advice to the Harris-Walz campaign is simple. Listen to the base. The progressive left has been the heart and soul of this party for years, driving it toward more just and equitable policies. There are voices within our party, particularly those committed to justice for Palestinians, that are being ignored. And that needs to change. The Harris-Walz campaign needs to lean into the issues that matter most to these voters, committing to an arms embargo on Israel and pushing for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza would not only be the right thing to do morally, but would also send a powerful message that the Democratic Party stands firmly on the side of human rights. This is a chance for the campaign to build a truly inclusive coalition, one that doesn't shy away from difficult conversations, but embraces them as a path toward real, lasting change. This convention was a milestone in many ways, but it also highlighted the challenges we face as a party. The progressive left is not going anywhere, and our voices will continue to push for a party that lives up to its highest ideals. We have the power to build a coalition that includes all voices, especially those that have been marginalized. And it's time for the Harris-Walz campaign to take that to heart as we move forward. Together, we can create a future that truly reflects the values of equality, justice, and peace. Thank you so much for joining me today on Convos with Corinne. If you found this reflection valuable, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts down below in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going, because together we can make a difference. See you next time.